Hi everyone, it's the intuitive painting of the week for August 20th to the 27th, 2018. And here is our image. This will become the newest oracle card in our deck, in our ongoing Sacred Journey deck. Yeah, so I'll let you take a good look at that. So I'm going to go over all the different elements in the image and their potential messages, and I'll show you the time lapse first so you can see how the painting was created, what the final oracle card looks like, and then I'll go over it. So the message for the card will be, take it all in. Spirit whispers her message on the wind, a lullaby of loving promises for peace and prosperity. It's a wonderful message and lots of healing this week. And I just wanted to give you a preview quick of the other cards and paintings for August. So all three of these, and then one more will be, I'll do the drawing for them. These are a little bit different size, just to give you a heads up. So this was the first week, right? A magical fairy, and this was week 2. So we're into week 3 now. So these are all 3, and yeah, these will all be drawn for us. So anyway, here's the message for the painting the week for the 20th through the 27th of August 2018. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye. All right, there's a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Well, first of all, let me give you a kind of a preview and close up the whole thing. So it started with the blue background and brought in all the color into the sky, and then the sun came up over the mountains, the hills, and this tree grew in the water, and some cattails and grasses. That's kind of what happened. That's what emerged. And I think I'll just start and work through the landscape. So yeah, so the general look at it is it's a beautiful sunset or sunrise landscape, right? So I like to think of it as an inner landscape. If it represents our emotions and a vibrational reality, it's like a dreamscape or an inner landscape. I love when landscapes come up because they seem very simple, but they're actually quite complex. So I'm going to start actually with the sun, with the light that came up, and how it came up in the light spread out into, you know, for those of us with an astigmatism and they see lights, it's what it looks like. But it created this kind of cross formation, so it's like the equidistant cross. If you're familiar with the shapes, preferential shapes test from Angeles Arian, like in her research into cultural anthropology, the equidistant cross often represents integration and relationships, those kinds of things. So that's very central to this. And then it creates these triangles here, and the triangles being about dreams and visions. So it feels like maybe there's a little bit about, you know, life purpose or our soul mission, that kind of thing. let's see, then there's the horizon, the lines at the horizon. We think about the horizon like going beyond our knowing, or coming, the light actually coming from that place of beyond our knowing. And then the horizontal lines throughout the sky and in the water, both representing stability. So there's a lot of really interesting themes here. I want to go right over to this tree. Because as soon as the land was put in, the tree grew up, right? And trees, like there's a lot of, what do I always say, like art therapy assessments where it would be like a drawing assessment or something like that. A real fun one is draw yourself as a tree. So whenever trees come up, I always look at them as, okay, if you ask yourself, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Or, that kind of thing. So I think of the tree as representing the self. So if we look at this image and we say, oh, okay, myself, yourself, the person, whoever's interpreting the card when it comes up or whatever, would see this tree as them. The whole thing, in any dream interpretation, any art interpretation, the whole thing represents you, but aspects of self. But this would be like the physical experience of self in this lifetime. So what really catches my eye with this tree is that it forms like an 11. And then when the light came on, it touched it on these two places that even emphasize the number 11. And I feel very strongly that that's an important, it wasn't, consciously intentional. I wasn't aware that I was doing it, but looking at it at reflection, I'm like, oh, I made a number 11, and the tree has got the two tree trunks again with that number 11. So talking about the number 11, and in the context of what I was just mentioning with hopes and dreams and visions and stability and going beyond and integrating ideas and relationships and things. So the number 11 being a master number. So it would be about mastery. So this tree, this aspect of self as the physical manifestation in this lifetime, is a master or a teacher or an illuminator, right? So at the core of our beings, we are meant to assist others and share and fulfill our soul mission and purpose through illuminating and teaching and those kinds of things. It's kind of like some of the messages of the number 11. But when the number 11 comes up, a lot of time it's a reminder to really pay close attention to our thoughts and ideas, and that things are manifesting really quickly. It's a number, again, it's a master number, a number of mastery. So I feel like this image and this card is relating to that, manifesting our thoughts and desires very quickly, and also kind of closely tied to our life purpose, manifesting our soul mission, our soul purpose very, very quickly. So, looking at the relationship here, it's on the spiritual side of the painting, this side being more practical and linear, this side being more spiritual and intuitive. And as we move down, so we're looking at the light in the tree, and we move down a little bit more, we're seeing a reflection in the water. So it feels like self-reflection. I just realized I didn't actually put a reflection of the tree in the water. So the tree standing alone, the self-reflection is both in the sky and water. So thinking about ourselves that, so above, so below, understanding ourselves. And the number 11 is such an interesting thing because it's a reflection of one. One reflecting itself. So again, doing some self-reflection, paying attention to the path that the light takes. And one of the things that really came up for me was this phrase, as I was thinking about the words that should describe this card. I have got this little space on the card, so I condensed it down. Some of the words that came up were between the shadows, and it was like the way the light was moving over the hills and coming through, and we've got the shadows of the tree and the shadow of the cattails and the grass, and it would, the light came up into the sky, went down into the shadows, came up again and went down again, and reflecting back and forth. And so there's the kind of pathway. So it's a reflection on maybe how far you've come, thinking about those kinds of things, and the path that your light has taken to get where it is now. And then, so the cattails, as those came up, interesting thing about cattails, they can be used as like a poultice for wounds. So they're a healing element, earth healing. And they also, if you think of a cat, like the animal, their tails are their communication. Cats communicate with their tails, whether they're moving quickly, standing straight up and down. They're kind of a form of communication, And so if they think about these cattails, the plant equivalent of that communication, well, it's moved also when the wind moves it, right? So the wind moves it. If the wind's blowing very quickly, it can be, draw a parallel with an actual cat, and if tail's moving very quickly, it could be some irritation or tumultuous, it's kind of the same thing. So it got me thinking about the wind and the light, and how that also, the path that it takes, the wind and blows. So the words that came to me then, in taking all of this in, was actually, the title of the card then became Take It All In. There's so much, there's such a message. It's almost a reflection of how far we've come and where we're going, So take it all in, and then Spirit whispers her message on the wind. It weaves, the message that we receive from Spirit is woven in between the light and dark. It's not just the light, and it's not just the shadow. It's that wind that moves things. It's the light it's all of it. It's the light that touches on the tree that shows the number 11. Like, the message is constant and coming, just like the wind, right? And then it felt too like it was important to me to use the feminine her. Spirit whispers her message on the wind, and also it was important to use the phrase like a loving lullaby, or a lullaby of loving promises, that kind of motherly, mother nature, yes, but also just that it just feels like it was important to emphasize the love in that message, and the message that comes from Spirit is a loving message, because it felt a little like there's some healing going on for many people around, how do I say it? So if this cross here is representing relationships, well, the cattails, what's interesting, as I kind of did a little research, they said that cattails can be given to a friend after an argument as a gesture of peace, and saying, I wish you prosperity, right? And rising above things. So I had a theory a long time ago that people have an attachment disorder. I mean, I don't like to use disorder, but when I started reading about attachment disorder in the context of psychology, I thought, wow, I think a lot of people have that attachment disorder with God or Spirit or source energy or whatever, that we feel like a distrust or something like that. And so it feels like that's being mended, and the cattail being a symbol also of that. It's used and you can use it as a poultice to mend a wound. And so it feels like there's so much healing around that connection. And we talk a lot about faith, or trusting source, or trusting God, or trusting Spirit, trusting the messages that come from our guides and all that. Well, taking a look, this may be a good time to kind of take an honest look at, do you trust your source? Do you trust Spirit? Do you trust your relationship? Or do you feel like you need to go it alone? Do you need to stand alone on the hill in this? So moving forward with your soul path, can you mend that? And that's the cattail too, what came to me too, is that it rises above the water. It rises above. So rising above all this self-reflection and what you think of. There's some red in there, maybe some frustrations and angers and these dark spots. can we rise above it and come up to the level of the light and allow Spirit to sing that lullaby, and can we believe the promises for peace and prosperity? So the total card says, take it all in, that Spirit whispers her message on the wind, a lullaby of loving promises for peace and prosperity. So that it's just like this beautiful scene and choices between the shadow and the light, and to just love, find the love in all of it, take it all in. And so this week ahead, allowing that, doing a little self-reflection, some honest self-reflection on our relationship to our source energy, our higher self and Spirit. Being aware, that number 11, being aware of our thoughts and emotions and how they manifest very quickly. And letting the light in and being light bringers ourselves. So I'd love to hear what other messages come to you from it. There's a lot to take it all. So there's a lot to take in. Interesting things. We could talk about the mountains and the different shapes there, and yeah, there's a whole bunch of interesting things. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all you, and when you get the card too. Working with this card should be, I'm excited about it. So that's our painting of the week. I hope you have a really wonderful week. Bye-bye.